Alright, I'm going to be talking about my game, which is called Dungeon Run, and it is a procedurally generated game, which means that every time you play this game, you're going to get a unique gameplay. So when I start this game, you're spawned into a room, and each room in this game is randomly created by placing random amount of objects in it, and in this game, the only way to move through the rooms is to find a side of the room which is not covered by the rocky walls. So in this case, it's the left wall. When I go through it, I basically go into another room, and but this room has traps in it and a coin. So the objectives of this game is to collect 5 coins to open a portal so you can exit the dungeon. And while doing that, you need to avoid these traps. You only get 3 tries. If you hit any of these traps, you lose a life. And once you're out of the 3 lives, you basically get booted out and you have to play the dungeon again. So you just collect the coin by walking over it, and after collecting 5 of these coins, a portal opens in a random room, and once you touch that portal, um, you the game is over. And so a little bit about the code is just basically a class and then bunch of for loops which determine what objects get placed and where they get placed. So if I go into the tile class over here, right here. So I have a section in the constructor for each object. So they follow the same pattern. So for example, boulders. First, I see that I want maximum of 5 rocks in a room, and then then I randomly choose how many rocks do I place in the room, and then I have an array that contains the information of the boulder's position and the what image should I use for a boulder. So I have 2 images for a boulder, and it randomly chooses between one of those two. So basically it's a for loop that runs however many times that I have chosen for the code has chosen for the boulders to be how many boulders should be placed, and then I put it into a 3 dimension vector which just serves the purpose of storing the X position, the Y position, and then the which image to use. Now I have done the same thing for the boulder and the flower and the tree, and then for the spikes, I have done the same thing, but in this case, I created an entirely new spike class because it was easier to deal with, because P5JS doesn't handle collision very well, especially if you put all the data in an array and then accessing those arrays each time. It took too much time, so I just created a spike trap class which just has a random up timer, meaning how long it should stay up, and a random down timer, meaning how long it should stay down. And every time it stays up for the whole time, I create a collider, and if the player hits that collider, it subtracts 1 life from the player. And then when the player reaches a life 0, um, the game ends. And that's about it. And then the maze is created by an algorithm called a depth first search algorithm, which basically goes through every possibility in the grid and opens up paths between them and makes sure that there is a path between all the rooms. So this comes under the initialize dungeon function, where I first choose an ending and a starting, and then this algorithm basically runs through all the rooms, checks if the room is visited or and checks its neighbors, and then it creates a path through all of them. I chose this method because it made sure that there exists a path from point A to point B always, and the player is never stuck out of the game. And that's it for the code. So yeah, and that's my game. Thank you.